evening, chat. Hello. No, I had a case of the stupids. Don't worry. There was no piano recital tonight. There was no. No, I boomered my own equipment and I couldn't get it running, which I'm sure most of you are not surprised about, but that is something I was dealing with. So we're back now. Here we are. So we're all set to go. We are all set to go on this. At least here, it's a rainy and absolutely. Oh, hold on one second. So it's a nasty fucking night out here, man. During the day it was okay, but it was raining and it was raining so much that it started to like hail a little bit in spots. And yeah, it's just been raining and crappy and cruddy like since 5 o'clock onwards. Basically, it's been raining all night. So crappy, crappy, crappy night. Guillermo, handyman to the stars, says someone gifted me a membership to this channel. I want to sue them for it. Well, yeah, yes. Well, you're gonna have to work on that. You're gonna have to work on that. All right, guys. But anyways, welcome to the show. My name is Sean, also known as Potential Criminal. I'm an attorney in the Cleveland, Ohio area, and tonight's just like a lot of big stories, and like there's a couple of really serious ones, and there's some like funny stuff, but there's a lot of seriousness here that's gonna happen. So and hopefully you guys learn something if you don't know the full story of what we're dealing with. Especially this, if you guys don't know who Soldier F is or the story behind it, we're going to get into that because that's going to be a trip down memory lane for, well, if you lived in Northern Ireland. But if you didn't live in Northern Ireland, you might not really know it. You really might not know it. Um, um, Minority Reporter says, am I going to cover the farms getting taken by the same group that took down 4chan? Not yet. No, that's not tonight. I need to do a little more work on that. I didn't have really time to prepare that stuff up. So, no, not tonight. Not tonight. Another night, probably. Another night, we may talk about that, but just not tonight. But anyway, guys, welcome to the Thursday show. We are live tonight in a couple of different places. We are live tonight on Twitter. We are live tonight on Kick. People keep telling me they want Kick, so Kick it is for now, I guess. And then YouTube, and then last but not least, locals. You guys are new. Potentiallycriminal.locals.com. It's just like Patreon. It's like Patreon, but it doesn't suck. And it costs you nothing to sign up, be part of the community. You can post on the wall. I put stuff up there. And, it's a great time to be had by everybody. We hang out there, do all kinds of stuff. And if you wish to support me, you can support me there. If you're worried about, I know some people don't like Kick or Rumble or YouTube taking their cut. Locals takes basically the same cut as Rumble. It's a very small cut of anything you wish to, support me with. That's a place you can do it. But if you pay for your support there, you do 3 months. You pay for 10 months. You get 2 months free. With that $3 a month, that's the least they let me charge. You get 2 live shows a week. We do a Monday night show. Usually starts about 9 o'clock, and we go till about 11:30 midnight. And then on Thursday nights, right after this show, we go and hang out. And guys, it's all the stuff you can't talk about here. All the stuff YouTube gets mad about, things you can't show. And we like to hang out. It's generally a very, very fun time. And I highly recommend it. I think you guys would enjoy it. And that's at potentiallycriminal.locals.com. Use the promo code FALL2025 if you would like to take a look. Not sure if it's for you. That's how you can do it. And in addition to that, we also have a live chat going, which I forgot to put up, and I'm putting up right now as I talk to you guys, and some of you may notice that. And that is a place where you guys can comment and say things, and I may happen to see them, and if it's stuff I can laugh about and I can show with everybody, certainly I will show it. There might be times where I can't show it, and, I guess we'll have our own little laugh. But that live chat is actually open to everybody. You don't have to actually be a member to join that. You can just be somebody hanging out. Now, let's see here. We're going to move on. It's time to go. It is time to get going. Is this pre-recorded? Yes. Yes, this was pre-recorded January 23rd, 1987. Okay, real quick. Chugi Show says for $1.99 late and double checking his bets on the upcoming games. I'm just saying that's a... Yeah, we're going to get to that. So let's get started. It's been about 5 minutes. It's time to go. It is time to get going on this. First of all, we're going to start off with the Louvre, the art heist at the Louvre. And if you guys don't know the Louvre, the Louvre is the very fancy museum in Paris. If you guys have never, you guys have probably seen it before. Those of you in Rio Linda, if you guys have seen, it's one of the places, and it's very well known, has a renowned art collection, and it's a beautiful, beautiful place to go. People enjoy it, and actually here, where is that picture at I had? Just so people could see it. Here is what it's famously, when you come up to it, it's obviously, here's where you can see the glass pyramids. It's an homage to Napoleon. And from here, they store some of the most beautiful artwork in the world in their collection. They do a great, great job of that. And with that being said, chat, there was a bit of an issue here. There was a little bit of an issue. There was a robbery of the art. And I know some of you might think, well, was it like the Thomas Crown affair? Was it like guys who, how do they steal it? How do they steal it? Well, they went in kind of like in a very, like a Thomas Crown style. If you guys have never seen that Pierce Brosnan movie or the Steve McQueen movie. Also kind of like, it's very much kind of like an Ocean's 11 type of heist. I mean, it was very brazen. It was in broad daylight. It was Sunday morning at 9:30 in the morning. And the way they did it is just absolutely fucking hilarious. And for you to understand what we're looking at here, this is the kind of the breakdown of the map of what happens here, just so you understand. And this is how this breaks out. So here's the Louvre. Here's the Apollo Gallery. Here are the pyramids. The thieves entered through a window right here. Now, some of you might say, Sean, that window has a problem. It's on the second floor. How did they get to it? Well, modern problems, well, this is an age-old problem, but modern problems call for modern solutions. No, there was no Catherine Zeta-Jones dancing through the lasers, sadly, on this one. But what they did have, they did have something very funny, and they were very creative about it. So what did they use? They used a lift truck. So as you can see, they used a bucket truck where the lift goes up and the lift comes down, rides up the rails.
Putain, ça y est. La police.
And this is people up. Obviously, this is people in the. This is people at the museum going, "Oh no, sacre bleu, merde, merde, merde! Oh no, no, ho ho ho! Oh baguettes!" Yes. So you can hear the police already on their way, and you can hear omelette du fromage, as they go here. And these guys rode up the thing, and it's funny because the German, this lift truck was from a German company. And the German company, and this is the great part about 2025, everybody gets involved in the memes. Everybody gets involved in the memes here. Even the people, when your equipment is used in a massive crime, obviously nobody got hurt, but the company that uses this, Becker, it says when things need to be done quickly. So it's a very based ad, and this really is from them. They really did this, and it worked. It worked. It really fucking works. They really did this. Now, what did these guys steal? Well, they actually stole quite a bit of shit. They stole about 88 million euros worth of Napoleonic jewels. And they basically snuck in, they came in as construction workers. And that's one of those. When you think about it, when you think about this picture here, you're sitting there, these guys wore orange vests. They're wearing hard hats, they're carrying tools, and they're riding this thing up to a window. If you're walking down the street, what are you thinking? That guy's working on the building. Like, it makes perfect sense. When you are where you're supposed to be, if you look like it, nobody ever says anything about it. It's that whole meme about carrying a clipboard and an orange vest can get you in almost anywhere. And it's true. You just walk around, you're a consultant, you're a safety person. Yeah, the orange vest alone will buy you a lot of time. Wearing a hard hat's a little bit extra. And if you have like a little logo on your hard hat or the back of your vest, just you don't even have to go that far. Maybe you're wearing like a little badge, nobody can read it from far away, and it's just a badge you print on the internet. There's a lot you can do. There's a lot you can do there. So these guys got in, and nobody thought anything of it, but it makes sense. It totally makes sense. Also, thank you, Zero Fox. It makes total sense why they got in there and how they got in there. So, anyways, they get inside and they start attacking the cases and everything that's set up, and they start stealing the jewels. And they go into, and here's some of the, these cases used to have armor glass, but they were changed. These are modern displays, and these are some of the things they broke into. They come in here to steal the Napoleonic jewels. So this is what they broke into. It's a nice smash and grab. They were in and out in under 10 minutes, and it's almost like Heat, where somebody's sitting there with a stopwatch. They probably were. How much time did they have? How much time do they have left to get this all done? Yes, le moderne. Now, what did they do with the, there are some pictures of the jewels themselves. Oh, I'm sorry. Don't need that. The actual jewels that were taken. And there's actually, this is somebody being a smartass here too about it, but these are examples of what was taken. These are pictures of them. And yeah, this is priceless stuff. Exquisite, very beautiful, nicely done. Everything there. Now, I do like this guy's smartass comment that since the Louvre made NFTs of their jewelry, even though they're stolen, they still own the same assets. Because the tokens exist and are in limited supply just as before. Nothing has changed. Very few people understand blockchain technology. Yes. So yes, people are mocking NFT holders, and I think this is actually a very good example of like why NFTs are retarded, and it's very nicely done. But yes, it's beautiful jewelry, beautiful pieces. Now, what's going to happen with these? Oh, I'm sure there's a massive manhunt in France. Are these guys probably outside of France by now? Yes. It's going to be way too hot to have those still in France. You're going to have the entire French government trying to hunt you down and kill you to get those back. And they will kill you to get those back. So what do you do with them? Well, unlike if you stole a Picasso, which that creates a problem. Like, generally speaking, black market art, you're not going to get full price for that. $100 million Picasso that you steal, you're going to have to fence it. And somebody who's going to buy it is going to buy it for a fraction of the cost. Now, are there people who buy and sell and trade in stolen art? Yes. Are there clandestine art markets around the world? Yes. There's still stolen Nazi art that's out there from World War II. There's all kinds of stolen art that might get traced around. But when it comes to these items, the jewelry, there's a far more sinister thing that's going to happen to them. And that is they're going to get destroyed and they're going to get broken down. And why is that? Well, you can break this down. I could take every diamond out of this. I could take every sapphire. I could take everything out of this and break it apart. The gold that's here can be melted down. The silver can be melted down. The diamonds can be cut and reshaped. I can cut them down into smaller stones. All these gems can be stripped apart. And those will retain value. Because there's still... I have $88 million worth of, diamonds and gold. Now, maybe I'll take a little bit of a haircut on it, but ultimately, these guys will probably get a lot of their money. So what's going to happen? These things will probably get destroyed. That's the sad part. But that is the reality of stones. And this is before laser engraving, so you don't get to have, like with diamonds, you can put, modern day, there's like little serial numbers and things you can engrave and tracking. All it's Napoleon. So it's obviously there's no laser engraving, no provenance controls back in, 1805. But that's what you have to deal with. That's what you have to deal with. So yes, it's very much a suffer second. Yes, and hand-cut jewels. Yep. And yes, Grizz is correct. Cars are very much the same way. You break it down for parts. But in this situation, that's going to be the easiest way to get these done. So you just go somewhere. Belgium, in Antwerp, they have the diamond cutters there. You could go to Tel Aviv and Israel. Dun, dun, dun! You go to Israel. There's all kinds of places you can destroy these things and get it done. It's going to be a lot easier to do than you think. And so it says, I heard that the Guggenheim is Napoleon Bonaparte's severed wiener on display. What? No. I don't know about that. So, but that is the issue for these guys. And, are they going to get caught? And probably right now, no. There are international treaties on stolen art. So, for example, how does this all work going forward? Well, there's all kinds of international conventions and treaties and laws. We've talked about these before where, like, Holocaust survivors can sue for the art that's somewhere else and they can bring actions. The United States allows them to bring actions in federal courts. There's all kinds of treaties about that. And there's even, laws against just stealing artwork. Even here in America, it's a federal offense to go steal artwork from a museum. Even if it's even though it's state level offense, no, it's a federal crime. It's a crime, and you may not think about it. But it's 18 USC 668. That's just theft of major artwork. When you talk about a museum is, anything that affects interstate or foreign commerce, they have to throw that in there because otherwise they don't have authority. It's in the United States. It's used for an educational or aesthetic purpose, has a professional staff, and cares for tangible objects that are exhibited on schedule. And a cultural heritage object, think about this, is something that is over 100 years old and worth $5,000 or is worth at least $100,000. That's a very, very, very low threshold here in America. Think about that. Well, stealing something worth $100,000, okay, maybe, but think about in a museum how many things they might have that are worth $5,000 and are old. Especially you go to like a natural history museum, or, for example, the Cody Museum of the Cody Museum of the West out in Wyoming, where they have like an entire collection of like thousands of guns to display. Or you go to the Museum of Natural, American History at the Smithsonian, and you steal like Teddy Roosevelt's hat from the Rough Riders. That's over 100 years old, and it's probably at least $5,000. This is not good. This is not good. It doesn't take much. It doesn't take much at that point. And, if you do this, and you know that it's an object of cultural heritage, um, if you receive, conceal, or even dispose of the object. So it's very much, if you get it and you know that, or you should have known, there's a lot of liability here. You face 10 years in prison. You face up to 10 years in prison for that. Minimum. So, yeah, a mere dinosaur bone is probably worth way more than $5,000. Yeah. Yeah. A barbed wire museum, yes. What if you're uncultured? I don't know about that. You're going to have a tough time there. So, the should have known is where they get you. Well, yeah, at some point, you're on notice. Oh, wow, this is probably a very fancy artifact. And let's say you're going to buy, oh, I have Teddy Roosevelt's hat. I might go online and Google, how much is Teddy Roosevelt's hat worth? Oh, shit, it's stolen. Like, you're going to check it out anyway. But yes, the dinosaur bones are a very good example of that. Those are, yeah. A T-Rex can sell for millions and millions of dollars. Is the Spam Museum safe? Yes. Or, any sort of, like, if there's a washboard museum or something like that, yeah, those are all going to be fine. Those are all going to be fine. There is a barbed wire museum? Wow. That said, though, some of that barbed wire might be worth money. It might be worth money. Because think about it. The barbed wire museum, does it affect interstate and foreign commerce? Let's just say it does. Is it situated in the U.S.? It's in Kansas. It's established for an educational purpose, as professional staff, and cares for objects. There you go. The barbed wire museum counts. The corn museum counts. Really, any museum's going to count. You got to be careful. Got to be careful. You could get in a lot of trouble. Don't fuck around with museums. Do not fuck around with museums, chat. But Rick from Pawn Stars said the best he could do was $500. Yeah, well, that's what I was gonna say. Yeah, I got a guy who knows these things. Yeah, you don't want to do that. You don't want to do that. But that is it's an interesting thing that happened. And yeah, once again, these guys did it in the middle of the day, 9 a.m. They roll into the museum on a Sunday where there's it's a decent amount of people come in, and they just steal this shit out in front of everybody. I give them credit. That's kind of like some Ocean's 11 shit. So, it's something that will go forward, and it will be interesting to see how they cover it. Oh, hold on here. What did somebody say? Brad said that would be a heist, stealing the largest ball of yarn. Yes. Yes, that would be a heist. Now, other news chat. P. Diddy, yes. Sean, Puff P. Diddy, Puff Pie, Puffer, Voter Die Combs, is filing his appeal in the to the Second Circuit Court of Appeals. And remember, you have to file your appeal in a timely manner, your notice of appeal. So this was filed. It's a notice of appeal. You don't have to do anything else other than just saying, I wish to appeal. I'm appealing my judgment from October 15th. It was amended October 16th. We'll just look at that real quick. And he's already got attorneys lined up for that, and they are going to go ahead, Alexandra Shapiro. And then you have to serve it on the other side, so you have to serve it on the U.S. Attorney's Office, and she is probably one of their appellate people. And so they're going forward to do it. And yeah, it costs money to file an appeal, unless you're indigent. If you're indigent, you can appeal for free at no cost, but otherwise it's $600. And then what is the actual judgment they're talking about here? Well, this is the judgment. If you guys have never seen it, I think we've gone over these before, but this is the Diddler's official judgment. And yes, he's got his two attorneys here. The day of the original judgment was the 14th. He found guilty on count 3 and count 5. Transportation to engage in prostitution. So he was found not guilty in the other 3 counts. And the following counts are dismissed without opposition. All counts from the original indictment. All open accounts. And they talk about all the things that were dismissed there. And you're like, okay, that doesn't sound bad. So what happens here? The imprisonment. Well, Diddy got 50 months of imprisonment. And he's going to be incarcerated as close as possible in the New York metro area. And then he's going to be considered for the RDAP, the Residential Drug Abuse Program, for which he qualifies. Now, he's not, you don't have to worry about this one here. He's remanded to the custody. That means they take you right there. But other things they do is sometimes you surrender at a later date to the marshals, or the one a lot of people are most familiar with is like out of Goodfellas, take me to jail. Or like some of the January 6 people, like Owen Schroyer, some of those guys, they had to report for their jail or their sentences. They have to surrender at a sentence of the institution designated by the Bureau of Prisons. Now, sometimes you're told by the judge before a certain time, or as notified by the U.S. Marshal's Office, or as notified by probation or pretrial services. And there we go. And then upon release, Diddy has 5 years of supervised release. Now, what are the mandatory conditions? You know, they're pretty obvious ones. Oh, hold on. What are people messaging me? They're massaging me. Okay. Now, what happens at this point? Well, it's pretty straightforward things. You can't commit any crimes, local, state, or federal. You must not unlawfully possess drugs. You must refrain from any unlawful controlled substance. You must submit to a drug test within 15 days of release from imprisonment, and at least 2 periodic drug tests thereafter, as determined by the court. You know, there's no restitution amounts we got to worry about. You must cooperate with DNA collection. He's not part of the sex offender, and, you know, there's no SORNA issues. He doesn't have to worry about that. It says you must comply with standard conditions that have been adopted by this court as well as any other conditions. And these are just standard ones. You must report to probation within 72 hours of your release, which is a normal thing, unless you're told to report to a different office or within a different time frame. After initial reporting, you will receive instructions about how you must report, and you must report as instructed. You must not knowingly leave the federal district where you're authorized to reside. So what does that mean for Diddy? Well, he's in New York, but, well, there's some problems about, you know, the maps of New York. The Southern District of New York is not that big when you think about it. You have the southern, you know, here's the Southern District of New York. If you're in the Southern District of New York where you reside, you're it's gonna be a little rough for you if you think about it. The geographical boundaries of the Southern District of New York, chat, are Manhattan, so New York County, you have Manhattan, you have the Bronx, you have Westchester County, Rockland, Orange, Putnam, Dutchess, and Sullivan counties. This is where you are allowed to go. You can only go in this yellow area. That's a pretty big restriction. That's a pretty big restriction. And then if you go down here, obviously this down here would be the Eastern District of New York. Then there's a Western District of New York, and it's like, I think it's like from here. And then this is the Northern District of New York. So it's very limited. Federal court is a little different, unlike state court where you got your little area. Well, it gets small quick. It gets small quickly. And where did that go? I was like, oh, going back to the standard terms. You must answer truthfully all questions asked by your PO. Lying to your PO, even if it's about retarded things. I heard you went to, I heard you were at this party where something happened. No, I wasn't there. Lie. You're in trouble. You must live at a place approved by your probation officer. If you plan to change where you live, you have 10 days before the change where you must notify them. If notifying is not possible due to, shit happening, you have to do it within 72 hours of the change or expected change. Your PO can visit you at any time at your home or elsewhere. And they have the right to take any items prohibited by the conditions of your supervision. So yeah, when you're on probation, they can, 7 a.m. Monday morning. Hey, Diddy, what up? We're here. We inspect your house. Nothing you do about it. There is no bitching. There is no fighting. You better do it. There is no option around that. You must work full time. Streaming doesn't count. At least 30 hours a week at a lawful type of employment. If you don't have full-time employment, you must try to find full-time employment. Unless you're excused. Like, maybe you have education you're working on. Maybe you're disabled. Maybe you have a family, like you've got a family member you have to care for. There might be times where you can get that modified. I've been able to do, not federally, but at the state level. My guy has to find a job. It's like, court told him to get his GED. When he's working on that full-time. He's retarded. He needs time. Or he cares for he's got a kid who's got, insert whatever nasty disability. Sometimes it takes time. If you change where you're going to work, you have to notify your PO at least 10 days before the change. If it's unanticipated, you have to do it within 72 hours. This is a big one. You can't communicate with somebody who is engaged in criminal activity. If you know someone has been convicted of a felony, you must not knowingly communicate with them without getting permission from your PO. Not associate with criminals. If you're arrested or questioned by a law enforcement officer, even if they cut you loose, but you're questioned, and it's not as simple as the cop goes walking by, it's like, hey, what's up, man? No, it's if they actually doing their job contact you, you have 72 hours to notify your PO. So that also includes interaction with law enforcement, like you get stopped for traffic issues and they search your car or something happens. You have to tell your PO. You can't obviously own any firearms or ammunition. That's not allowed. You may not make any agreement with a law enforcement agency to act as a CI without getting permission of the court. And that's because, let's say, the FBI comes up to you, or, Diddy's living in New York City. The NYPD comes and says, hey, man, we need you to wear wire and go to this party. Well, he's not allowed to be around people doing criminal activity. He's not allowed to be around drugs. He's not allowed to do whatever. He needs permission from the court before that's allowed. And you must follow all the instructions of your PO. Those are the rules for Diddy. Those are Diddy's rules going forward. Job well done says ammunition. That's crazy. Yeah. Yep. You can't possess a firearm or ammunition under federal law if you are a prohibited person. Because the way you get around that is, guys are walking down the street. Well, one guy holds the ammo, one guy holds the gun. They both can't get in trouble. They quickly, that's an easy way to get around that. And generally speaking, if you're in possession of ammunition, there's an idea you're in possession of a firearm as well. You're not allowed to do that. So, that is what's going on there. Diddy is, and that's just the terms of federal probation. Not fun. Nobody enjoys them. Being told what you have to do and, facing a lot of jail time afterwards is never a way to go through stuff. Never a way to go through things. Moving on from there, guys, there is some weird stuff in the murder of the assassination of Charlie Kirk. And if you guys remember, Tyler Robinson is the tranny chaser. And how this all works. And if you guys remember, he is now facing charges for murdering Charlie Kirk. He's facing all kinds of things here. And we've now learned that there is a gag order in the case. And it's a very wide-ranging gag order, but there's also some people not involved in it, which is a little weird here. That you think that the way this is done, you're like, On top of that, there is a weird court order that's kind of coming into play. And this is one that it's actually going to happen tomorrow. It's going to happen tomorrow. And we don't know what it's about. So this is a court order saying, hey, There's a guy named Jackson Thomas Fox is going to be transported for a preliminary hearing before the judge. He's in front of Tony Graff, and it's going to be held tomorrow at 3 p.m. Okay, but why is Jason Thomas Fox being transported to preliminary hearing against Tyler Robinson? What's this all about? We don't know anything. We don't know anything. Could this be a guy who's a jailhouse snitch who heard him say something? Probably, possibly. We don't know. We do not know right now. And part of the reason why we don't know is there is an order for pretrial publicity here. And he's faced with 1 count of aggravated murder and a couple other felonies. And yes, it's going to generate significant pretrial and trial publicity. Yep. Now, this idea that it could compromise his right to due process, it could partially. It could a little bit. Pretrial publicity is of concern because it can taint the jury pool. Yeah, but I also don't think anybody doesn't know about it. And yes, in the name of protecting his rights, the following issues are in place. There's a protection order, meaning a gag order. So lawyers who have participated, who are now participating, or who will yet to participate in the investigation or litigation, shall strictly abide by Rule 3.6, which prohibits a lawyer from making extrajudicial statements the lawyer knows or reasonably know will be disseminated by means of public communication. Meaning, you can't go make statements to the press as a lawyer, which, yeah, as attorneys, you're not supposed to do that. As an attorney, generally speaking, you're not part of the process like that. Now, prosecutors do this every once in a while, and then the defense attorneys generally have to respond. But I think ultimately, if Tyler's attorneys want to do it, they should be allowed to do it if they decide that's their way of making it happen. But the order goes on, and the order goes on to, and you might say, this looks like the same thing again. Well, it's kind of. And it says, lawyers who have participated, who are now participating, or who will yet to participate, shall not intentionally, knowingly, or recklessly, and I don't know how you can recklessly permit somebody else to do something, but your witnesses, your investigators, your consultants, meaning you hire a consultant to help you with evidence, or a jury consultant, or something. A staff member, meaning your secretaries, your paralegals, the girl who answers your phones, or other member of the prosecution or defense team to make extrajudicial statements, which, if made by the lawyer, would violate Rule 3.6. I mean, at what point? How does that work here? I mean, that is very broad and very wide-ranging. That is very, very wide-ranging. I don't know how you're going to... Some of this, like, how would I recklessly permit one of my staff to go talk to the press? I don't know how you could recklessly do that. I get intentionally telling your staff, like, hey, Bob, I know you answer the phones. Go leak that shit. I get you can't do that. That makes sense to me. But how do you recklessly permit somebody to do that? I don't know how you can recklessly allow that. I don't know, maybe if you're just talking aloud and you know that you have a chatty Cathy who works in your office. I guess. I don't really know what they're thinking here. But they point out, though, and lawyers means also the prosecutor. The prosecutor's office as well. They're bound by that because they're lawyers too. That said, though, to that end, lawyers participating in the investigation or litigation of this case shall inform all witnesses, investigators, consultants, staff members, or other members of the prosecution or defense teams about the prohibitions contained in this order. Okay, well, the investigators, does that mean like private investigators for the defense? Okay, does that mean the detective investigating it? Yeah, but are they officially part of the prosecution team? For the terms, in terms of discovery, yes, you're all part of the government. But the prosecution team is the prosecutor's office. And the prosecutor's office, they can have their own investigators. They can have their own detectives that they have work for them. It's not an uncommon thing to do that in some prosecutors' offices where they have their own guy who can go out, serve subpoenas, question people, do all that fun stuff. But just in general, like if there's a detective from the Provo, Utah Police Department, He's not part of the prosecution team. More importantly, like the Utah State Police, officer, like just some random officer who's part of like the local police department, and he learns information. How is he bound by this? Now obviously, yes, if you were a witness, okay, I can see a witness being bound. But guess, like, there's all kinds of law enforcement organizations that aren't bound by this. The FBI's not bound by this. DHS isn't bound by this. All kinds of groups and organizations aren't bound by this. This isn't as bad as the Aaron Spencer gag order, but if somebody from Turning Point USA learns information, guess what? They're going to be able to talk about it. So you got, like, Turning Point USA. There's all kinds of groups that could leak info or get info leaked to them. You got the FBI. And then guess what happens? Eventually, you're going to get some reporters who get stuff. And they're not going to reveal their sources, but you've got all these organizations that are going to start just talking and aren't going to be covered. It will be very, very, very weird to see how this shakes out. And things are going to get leaked. Things are going to get leaked. And let me see here. How are these not flagrant violations of the First Amendment? Well, there's a lot of case law about these gag orders and these restraints on parties, and narrowly tailoring it to the actual attorneys involved. Like, there's a lot of case law on this. Goes tons of court cases. There's also prior restraint cases. This kind of all falls into the world of where newspapers have had the inability to attend court hearings, or hearings are closed off. This is I don't know about Utah law, but this is kind of getting close to unconstitutional. I don't know ultimately how this would shake out, but yeah, I assume somebody's going to take this to court here pretty quickly. Can a lawyer appeal this? Yes, a lawyer would have the right to appeal. Tyler would have the right to appeal this and say, no, I want to be able to talk about my case. I want to give media interviews. Parties who were affected by this, yes, the court is giving you a restraint on your speech. You have the right to challenge that. Now, the Court of Appeals might say, oh, you're a lawyer, fuck you, that's your problem. You signed up to do this. Okay. Or they might say, yeah, you are the secretary in his office. Okay, well, maybe. I mean, you would have the ability to appeal. I think a Court of Appeals is probably going to be like, yeah, we're not doing this. But remember, Court of Appeals are in the business of propping the system up. If they did their jobs, the systems would fucking implode. So Palmanian says gag is only real as the physical object being used to gag you. Yes, Diane is correct. This is what Joe Neerman, Good Logic, was trying to do in the Trump cases, was get the gag order busted up. Yes, I agree. He was trying to do that, and it ultimately didn't go anywhere. But that's, once again, not uncommon. Courts are going to back up courts on these types of things. So, let me see here. But this is, it keeps going, though. And they say this applies to lawyers who are not participating in the investigation or litigation, but are associated with the county prosecutor's office or associated with defense counsel's firms. Meaning, so for example, if you are another attorney, another assistant prosecutor, and your job is to handle speeding tickets and stuff, yeah, you're liable for this. But also, if it's at the firm of, Sean and Kurt, and Sean, Kurt, and Joe, and Kurt's trying the case, I'm not. I'm handling other stuff, and Joe's handling other stuff. We're both bound by that too, which I think is a bit of a stretch there. I think is a bit of a stretch because that's not my client. I didn't take him on. Now, making the prosecutor's office abide by that, that makes sense. That makes sense. But I am an independent person. The idea that you could take me as a attorney, and because of a case my, partner or an associate took on, is now binding against me, that's fucking insane. That's insane that I've lost my right to free speech. That is really, 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 really problematic. It's really problematic. I don't think that's legal. That's where it gets to, okay, that's definitely legal. Like I'm not even involved. I'm not even involved. It's not my case. Now, it does say lawyers are permitted from making statements under Rule 3.6, and there are rules you can do there, and it's hold on, where is it? There we go. So they talk about trial publicity, and this is the Utah State Courts. This is their Rule 3.6. Oh, God, I hate when these websites do that, and you can't highlight. So they say that ultimately, you're not supposed to make statements that would have a likelihood of prejudicing an adjudicative proceeding in a matter. You're not supposed to. Now, you may state some things: the claim, the offense, or the offense involved, and the identity of parties, unless it's prohibited. Anything contained public record. So if there's like a probable cause, or if there's motions that have been filed and those motions are available to the public, you're allowed to do that. The investigation is in progress. The scheduling of like, hey, when's your next court hearing, Attorney Martin? And they can ask and I can tell them. Or the result of any step in litigation. Hey, there was a motion to suppress. What happened? Oh, we lost. Or we won. I'm allowed to tell them that. I can say, if you know anything that happened, if you were at the bar that night when this shooting occurred and you saw who did it, or you know anything about it that may help my client's innocence, please come contact me. You see prosecutors do that. If you know anything, please contact us. The warning of danger concerning the behavior of a person when there's reason to believe there's a harm out there. Other things, the family status of the accused. A lot of this is going to be things that the prosecution are going to talk about because they're generally worried about information necessary to apprehend somebody, the time and place of arrest, the identity of the arresting officers. There's all kinds of stuff there. Now, this is where you get to the issue of you may make a statement that you believe is required to protect your client from undue effect of recent publicity not initiated by you or your client. So, for example, this is the case of a prosecutor coming out. And let's say the prosecutor says a bunch of shit that prejudices your client. You have the right to go, no, it is you who is wrong, Mr. Prosecutor. And you're allowed to hold a press conference to reciprocate. And reciprocate that same information. You only can do so much as necessary, but you are allowed to battle back. Or if something else happens and people are out there, and if, for example, it's not the prosecutor, but it's a third party, the victim's family is out there doing something, you're allowed to battle back and say, no, that's bullshit. You're allowed to protect your client. So it's not a complete, you just have to shut up, but you have to have the right reasons to do it. Hold on one second. Clyde. Hi, buddy. Oh, hold on, chat. Guys didn't get him for a couple of nights, but yes, here he is. Here's the good boy. Here's that good boy, Clyde. Yes, we got a Clyde sighting. We also have Bon Bon running around. And she's back for a couple of nights, so. Hi, buddy. He's like, get that little dog away from me. He's like, I am too tired. He's like, I can't study for my piano lessons with her in the way. So, yes, Arcade Outpost is right. Yes. Dog, 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 dog. When you see a dog, you pet a dog. Good boy. Good boy. Mwah. What's that, Clyde? U.S. Trump would destroy the Wailing Wall with the same bulldozers that he's crushing the White House with? That's not a bad idea. That's not a bad idea, Bubba. That's not a bad idea. Oh, and speaking of not bad ideas, getting through some things here, guys. You know, tonight is sponsored and brought to you tonight by thedragonstreasure.com. Use the promo code CRIMINAL. Get 10% off your tea, your coffee, your soaps. Help the tea man and buy his tea. What else do we have here? We have MAF Corporation chat. That's right. MAF-arms.com. Use the promo code POTCRIM and get you some wind chimes and wind chime accessories. Only 10% off with the promo code POTCRIM. And then chat, last but not least, it is the end of biker season. It is the end of the riding season. But Stoney's Bar and Grill at 1580 East Broadway Street in Rockville, Minnesota, chat. You know, Stoney's lost a critical piece of his advertising machine recently, so we're here to pick up the slack in the meantime because the Steel Toe Morning Show can't deliver, chat. That's right. He left Stoney's in the lurch, and that's why I'm here to pick up that slack, Cheeto. You can count on me. I don't go to jail. I don't go to jail. Cheeto, that's why I'm here. Guys, it is Thursday, $2.50 cans. They also have free Purple Pride shots. I don't know in Minnesota. Remember, it's all about gayness in Minnesota, so I guess what they do down there. You can register for a chance to win a TV during the big game coming up. And then also, chat, last but not least, they have a Halloween party coming up. Remember, guys, Halloween is next Friday. So you could show up. And whatever you do, don't show up as a twister, Matt. Because, God, somebody might be dressed up as Aaron who might come over and hold you down and do twister on you. So don't do that, although that'd be very hilarious. That's at Stoney's chat. Serving Minnesota as its premier biker bar 30 years running. No, why is that not going away there? I hate it when it doesn't do that right away. Visit Stoney's or Bonbon goes back home. Yes, just my clients go to jail. Yeah. And it happens. It happens. Yes. Jordan's right. We don't go to cuck jail. Now, are there Muslims at Stoney's? No, I believe Stoney's is Somali free. So that's another reason to go there. There are no Somalis at Stoney's. And then Lolo says, Anoka, Minnesota is home to the world's largest Halloween parade. So, did not know that. That's interesting. All right, guys. So from there, let's see here. I gotta get... Hold on. I got too many freaking tabbies open. I gotta close them as I go. All right. Moving on from here, guys. This is, speaking of jail. This guy in Oklahoma, he pulled a fast one on the cops, and I know he's probably gonna argue this didn't happen the way he thinks it happened here, but he pulled a fast one on the cops, and this is, it's a clever way to do it. He posed as a lawyer so he could go see his girlfriend, and this guy, Aaron Oldham, wanted to go see his girlfriend. In the jail, and it's like, what love is there when there's a love of meth? A meth bonded relationship. So he lied about being a lawyer so he could go see his girlfriend because, yes, you could show up to court. Yes, I'm an attorney for so-and-so. Now, most places you have to show proof that you're an attorney. ID, if you have a bar card, in Ohio, they're digital now, but, ID, business card, proof you're an attorney. And if you go to places enough, people recognize you, and that's not a problem anymore. But here, this guy just showed up and said, I'm an attorney. And they said, okay. And he got to go see his girlfriend. And He claims that he was trying to get power of attorney paperwork signed for his girlfriend. Not uncommon at all for that to happen. You know, your girlfriend is there. I'm trying to get paperwork done. She's stuck in jail. I can't get things done because I don't have power of attorney. I can't pay her bills. I can't take care of this, that, or the other. So it's not uncommon to get power of attorney stuff done. You know, when people are in jail, I've had help clients get those signed and get them out to their families. And you're very careful when you do that. And you make sure you have it documented. That's what they wanted and all this happens. Because if people have power of attorney, they could screw you over and take everything from you. So his girlfriend had gotten arrested out of a warrant from Nevada, which means she was going to get extradited. And he's like, well, I better talk to her now before they take her to Nevada. So he said that he was her attorney and she's his client. And then after being granted, you know, they got access, they were placed in an attorney visitation booth. Now, when you're with your client, depending on the place, sometimes it's still behind glass. But more commonly, you're in a room with them, just like being able to talk to them and hang out with them. Now, they both filled out the power of attorney paperwork. It does sound like they did it. It doesn't sound like he went in there to go do a surprise conjugal visit. Oh, the police rescued kittens stranded on the highway. Aw. And they noticed something might be wrong when they started hugging and kissing. Which, that becomes the issue. You kind of gave it away. He got arrested right afterwards when they realized he didn't have a license to practice law. He stated he understood why he was being arrested, but he believed he had attorney-client privilege. Now, this is a thing here. When you have power of attorney, you don't have attorney-client privilege. You are not there. You are an attorney. You're not like a legal attorney. So this sounds like some kind of... I think he's smart enough to know that's just sovereign citizen retardation. But it sounds like he was trying to use that as a way to get out of it. Yes. I can't make out with your client? I thought this was America. Well... You're not allowed to have sex with your clients, and that you're not allowed to have romantic relationships. That is a big no-no. That actually will get you in a lot of trouble under the rules, and it's you're not allowed to do it. And why is this not working here? And you know you have the rules of professional conduct, and you're not allowed to do this shit, guys. You are not allowed to engage in this kind of shit. It's a bad idea. It's a very, very bad idea. Do not do it. Even if you have a very serious and intimate relationship with somebody, don't do it. Do not do it. Do not do it. I never, even if it's very serious and romantic, don't do it. Oh. So, and it talks about, conflicts of interest and specific rules that you can't do. And this is Ohio's, but it's no different than a lot of other states. You shall not enter into business transactions. You're not allowed to do that. You're not allowed to do a lot of things that are allowed there. You can't solicit gifts from a client. There's a lot of stuff you can't do here. You can't provide financial assistance to clients, except if you're trying to get ready for a court case. But you have to be very careful about what you do. You have to be very careful about what you do. And one of the biggest ones is you can't fuck your client. You cannot fuck. And now people might say, well, you fuck your clients all the time. Like, har. Yes, but you cannot have sex with your client. You cannot engage in a romantic relationship with them. That actually gets you in a lot of fucking trouble. Like they will fucking come after you for that. And that is a no. Like obviously everything you do as an attorney, you should not break the rules. But that's a big one. That is a big one there. You can't just You can't. You just can't do it. And ultimately, if you get down to here, you shall not engage or solicit or engage in sexual activity with the client unless the relationship existed between them when the relationship already commenced. So, like, for example, I could represent 2.0. Guess what? We have a relationship. It's okay. But otherwise, smashing ain't romance, yes. But can you randomly bail hot women out of jail? Yes, 100% you can do that. But this is a big deal. This will get you in a lot of fucking trouble. This will get you in a lot of fucking trouble. So, he will get you in a lot of fucking trouble. So, that is not something you can do. That is not something you can do. So do not do it. And yes, I consent. I don't, says Clyde. Eric says, well, what if I'm her OB? Don't. But yeah, don't do that. Don't do that. Yes, so that means the lawyer can fuck you. Yes. That's exactly what this means. Your lawyer can fuck you over. You just can't be brought to completion. Oh, buddy, that's so funny. Doo-doo. Doo-doo. Good job. Good job out there, chat. Oh. Laws are meant to be broken, not those ones. Not the rules of professional conduct. And so, real quick, chat, we're going to catch up on some super chats here real quick. Shredder S07 says, someone should have told the West Hollywood guys to try dressing as janitors. Might have been more effective. Yeah, there was a big art. They tried to steal some art in West Hollywood, yeah. But no, because you look like you're supposed to be there. It's not a bad idea. Stephen Cooper's been a member for 22 months, says, if they got disassembled, and these are the Napoleonic jewels, if France manages to find them, they will bring back capital punishment just for them. Yeah, or they might just get them killed. They just might murder them, somewhere else. The DGSE, French intelligence, may just kill them. Could easily happen. And thank you for being here 22 months, Stephen. Thank you. Maddie B says, if you get caught in a lie, better call Sean. Yeah, not a bad idea. Not a bad idea at all. Not a bad idea at all. Then EDW Raptor says, Deputy Commissioner Claude Lebel will find these diamond thieves. Yes. Yes, there is it's going to be very interesting to see how they track those guys down. Maddie says that, and going to Diddy here, he's going to be getting out of prison before his appeal is up. Potentially, yeah, that is a likely outcome. He could get done with a sentence before his appeal's over. Appeals are going to take time. You got to get the transcript and all the exhibits, and you're going to need time to respond and oral arguments. Yeah, it could easily happen. It could easily happen. BobTube has been a member for 11 months. Is telling Diddy, just do whippets in church. Hashtag success mindset. I get that joke. Dolly Talk has been a member for 20 months. Thanks, Dolly, for being here. Is saying this does not work in Arizona, sadly. Well, a lot of things don't work in Arizona. A lot of things don't work there. And Whiskey 77 for $5 says, see, J-Rock, I told you, quit screwing with Tammy in Lot 35. You can't make out with the trailer park clients. J-Rock, stop doing that. And then BobTube for $5 doodles is saying, did you see that Nicolas Sarkozy, former president of France, was, sent to prison, and he's getting fucked with by the inmates? I did see that, but I don't know enough about the story to really talk about it. But yes, it does sound kind of funny when you read that the people in prison are fucking with the former president. But it totally makes sense. You're going to fuck with that guy. Because, what's he going to do to you now? What's he going to do to you now? Thank you for that super chat. John Coleman saying, for 19 months, thank you, John, saying, what is love, lady thou woundest mine heart? Very, very funny. Yes. Yes. Where Tiger Ray says, any updates on the Jay-Z lawsuits? No, I don't think so. I need to look into those. But yeah, there were a lot of problems with those. Hold on here. We'll save that. There's also there's a lawsuit brewing. Cardi B is seeking sanctions against the attorney and the plaintiff that tried to sue her for the assault case, but also ASAP Rocky and his attorney, Joe Tacopina. Joe Tacopina has been sued by ASAP Rocky, the guy who cried and acted like a bitch on the stand, claiming Rocky shot at him, is suing the attorney for statements he made outside of court. So that's actually something we might cover here because that'll be a fun one too. Yes, ASAP Rock is better than ASAP Rocky. I don't know about that, but yes. All right. Let's see here. Gotta cancel out. Okay. All right. We're almost done here, chat. We're almost done. We're making good time. Now. There was a massive indictment regarding organized sports betting. And this got a bunch of NBA players and La Cosa Nostra, also known as the Mafia. Dun, dun, dun! Yes, the Mafia is still around. This little thing of ours that we have. Now, what's going on here? And this is a lawsuit that covers a lot of different people, and this is a rigging case. It sounds like there's some point shaving going on technically, and it just starts off with some basic things here you guys need to understand. NBA players are involved. Chauncey Billups, I remember him because he used to be on Detroit, and the Pistons used to beat the Cavs, all the fucking time in the Eastern Conference Finals when LeBron was around. So I know Chauncey Billups, Terry Rozier, Damon Jones. There are a bunch of people involved in this. I didn't realize Chauncey Billups is the coach of the Portland Trailblazers, but yeah, there you go. Now, these guys were all part of a massive indictment along with 30 other people, and there's all kinds of just straight up craziness here. And their indictments all come out of the Eastern District of New York. You're thinking, well, wait, it's not the Southern this time? No, it's not. Which is kind of a surprise. I'm not sure why it wasn't there, but hey, whatever. But it's the Eastern District of New York. They could easily be involved because of organized crime. Pomian says straight up Stanceling. Well, it do be like that, Mr. Stancil. It do be like that. Now, these guys are blaming Trump, but as we get into this has been going on since the investigation has been going on since the Biden administration. So it's not Trump going after him. So the indictment got filed on October 9th, but everything dropped now. Everything's kind of broken now. So it's United States of America versus a bunch of people. Guy knows Spanish G, Flapper Poker, guy known as Maddie or the Wrestler. That's not a whoppy name at all. A guy named Spook, which you love to hear. Tony, also known as Black Tony. A guy known as Albanian Bruce, which these are starting to get like, these are like fucking Grand Theft Auto names or Sopranos names almost. A guy known as Sugar. That's gonna be so gay. Especially if you're friends with Juice. This guy Zhen Hu, he's known as Screwly, which okay. There's all kinds of people here, Okay, a guy named Curtis is known as Kurt. Yeah, that's pretty obvious. Guy known as Black Rob. It's like, how many Robs do you know that you have to differentiate between the black one, the white one, the Mexican one, the Jewish one? And a bunch of people here. These are a bunch of these guys here. But anyways, you see Chauncey Billups is on the list, amongst other people. And this says, beginning at least in 2019, the defendants engaged in a scheme to rig or cheat illegal poker games in the Eastern District of New York and throughout the United States. So this is where things start off. These guys did all kinds of crazy shit. this is one of the things they got involved in. So, and actually, we went to the wrong case first. We want to go to this one first. I think this is the NBA. Yes, sorry. This is the NBA one, guys. I'm sorry. Chauncey Billups is involved in a bunch of other shit, too. So what happens here? So these guys are all over the United States. But remember, with interstate commerce, they can drag you pretty much in anywhere. So you see the guy Spook is from Missouri. The guy, one of these other guys, is a resident of Mississippi. And one of these guys was selling his sporting picks through Instagram. The guy known as Sugar lived in Pennsylvania and Nevada. He sold his betting picks through Instagram. Guy named Damon Jones was a resident of Texas. He was in the NBA for 10 years and then was a coach for a couple years. There's another guy who was a resident of Ohio. Then there's Terry Rozier, who was a resident of Ohio, North Carolina, and Florida. And they say during the 2022-23 season, he played for the Charlotte Hornets. And here's what they talk about. They talk about the NBA, the betting companies, and the betting conspiracy here. Their hideout was called the Woodpile. Thought Heretic says I'm rooting for Spook. That's right. Free Spook, everybody! Free Spook. So they talk about what goes on here. They talk about the NBA teams. They're not really worried about that. The NBA maintains codes of conduct. Among other things, wagering in connection with NBA games is prohibited, and providing non-public information is prohibited. NBA teams are required to report information concerning player injuries, illness, and rest for all NBA games. So your injury reserve, your rest, like all that stuff, just like the NFL, just like baseball. On each game day, the NBA disseminated the injury report for each NBA team playing that day. The injury report says who's available, probable, questionable, doubtful, and out. And they say betting companies 1 through 4 were licensed gambling companies operating in the United States, and they offered sports betting services for NBA games and players' stats. And since 2021, and Company 1 and Company 2 have been the official co-betting sports partners of the NBA. Notice they're not bringing them up, but yes, these are legitimate organizations. Now, they talk about here, one of the guys' name's Jonte Porter. He was an NBA player during the 23 and 24 season. And they go through the list of all these people here. There's a bunch of co-conspirators who may or may not, and they don't appear to have been indicted, so these are where you get the term of unindicted co-conspirators. So they go through all this, and they talk about sports betting. And the reason why Congress was involved with the Professional and Amateur Sports Protection Act, well, it's because they were trying to fight organized crime. And there was too much money involved. So all but 4 states were prohibited from sponsoring, authorizing, or operating sports wagering. There are 4 states that are exempted: Nevada, Oregon, Delaware, and Montana. They already had organizations that were already in setups that were already done there. And then in 2018, following years of litigation between the state of New Jersey, which desired to legalize sports betting in several professional sports leagues, the Supreme Court struck down PASPA. It's unconstitutional, which is why you see all the betting now that's everywhere. We're not as bad as where you see like betting everywhere like in a English Premier League match. But that's why betting has exploded everywhere now, is because of this court case in 2018. This was a big deal. Now, betting companies operated online applications. They branded sports books at casinos nationwide or both. You can do all this shit on your phone. Wagers made at retail places were made pursuant to the house rules. Among other things, you are prohibited from wagering in connection with contests where your wagers are based on access to pre-release confidential information or other non-public information. So the people in charge of the sports book can say, we're not going to pay you if we have reason to believe or find out you are doing inside trading or you have inside knowledge. So if you're like Ace Rothstein in casino and you know all the stuff, you're not allowed to do that. They will stop you. And you'll probably get away with it once or twice, but if you start cleaning them out, they don't want your action. And the terms and house rules are prohibiting others from doing it, but you can have people come in, like you pay your girlfriend to go do it. It's known as straw betting. And it says, despite the legalized, widespread legalization of sports betting, unlicensed bookmakers or bookies, if you didn't know that term, chat, offered sports services and betting to bettors. Bookies frequently accept bets on bespoke betting websites that allow users to place wages. And unlike legal sports books, bookies typically settled up offline through cash or peer-to-peer payments or crypto. So you get paid like Venmo, Cash App, whatever. Then there's also the prop bets, and if you guys have never ever seen prop bets are anything that does not affect the game's outcome. You might, like who scores more points? Who in the Super Bowl, a prop bet's going to be, what's the coin toss going to be? The prop bet might be who's going to get the ball first? Who scores first? How many field goals are going to get kicked? What's the weather going to be like for the Super Bowl? Is it going to rain? They bet on shit like how long the national anthem's going to go. All kinds of stuff. You can bet on all kinds of bets. Prop bets take many forms. You could bet on points, rebounds, assists, and minutes played, or 3-pointers made by NBA players. And money lines, and God, I feel like I have to explain this, but I assume most of you know this. Money lines are the game's outcome. Who's going to win or lose? And you have the point spread. And the point spread is basically like you can, handicap, are they going to win by so much? And you're going to take that, bet against the spread or with the spread. You can parlay, which is 2 or more individual bets. To win at a parlay, you have to get successful at all of them. There's the betting line, there's the odds makers that they do that. So in a prop bet, it's, the odds for an outcome. They might set the betting line for a player's points in a game at 20. And then you have to bet an over or an under. And you see under or over. So you can say, is he going to make more than 20 points or under 20 points? Odds makers have proprietary processes for setting their lines, but the lines generally take into account all publicly known information, but they're allowed to come up with their own formulas and algorithms. You need a whiteboard for this? Yes, there's Polymarket as well. Yeah, whose knee touches the ground first? Are they carrying the ball? Or there's all kinds of shit. Flashing gang signs, yes. The nursing home my brother is in has betting sites blocked on their Wi-Fi. Yeah. Ariel says that violates the Indian Gaming Regulation Act. Well, I'm sure it did, but you guys the tribes operate on their own anyway. They get to do whatever the hell they want. So, what do you guys need a whiteboard? We're not doing the whiteboard. Everything at gambling I learned from Norm Macdonald. Yeah, well. Yes, you could sell the heroin you stole from Avon Barksdale to Prop Joe on a parlay for Weebase pager code. But yes, these are the laws we have to deal with, chat. These are the real laws. So they came up with a scheme here. So what were they doing? They were using non-public information. And it typically can involve various iterations of patterns within a network of these people. So they had access to private information from players and coaches. And they provided that non-public information in exchange for either flat fees or shares in the profits. And it makes sense. That's how you do it. That's how you take that private information and use it. So, what do? They caused other places to place these fraudulent wagers through betting companies, mobile applications. And in doing so, they made materially false and misleading statements to the companies, defrauding them. And they made material facts which were represented, and they misled. They were wagering based on non-public information and straw betting. Many times their bets were successful and paid out. They wouldn't have paid out had they known that these were basically fraudulent information and people doing this. They concealed stuff, and that, you get to wire fraud. But here's how they talk about the different types of things they would do. So prior to a game, Rosier informed the defendants that he was going to prematurely remove himself from a game doing an injury and not return to play further. So he did that for the purpose of enabling the guy to go gamble. He was not on the Hornets injury report, and they were not aware of his plan to exit the game prematurely. The public was not aware of it. So Laster sold the information to multiple co-conspirators to enable them to place bets. In exchange for the information, co-conspirator 1 agreed to pay $100,000 from their expected fraudulent gambling winnings. And prior to the game, they exchanged text messages. Once again, chat, this is a goddamn tattle machine. Do not do it. Do not do it. Do not take notes on your criminal conspiracy.
Nigga, is you taking notes on a criminal fucking conspiracy? What the fuck is you thinking, man?
Don't use your phone like that. Just call if you're going to call. Just don't be retarded. Yes, you'd say this is insider trading, and you're right. But when you're in Congress, it's okay. It's okay. It's different. That's different. Yes, do not redeem. Do not redeem. Do not redeem. You know, he exited the game prematurely and confirmed their plan to place wagers on the unders that he would underperform relative to the betting lines. And that's what they were going to bet on. Obviously, he's not going to score the points, so he'll bet under. He went on to provide the information through a bunch of straw bettors so they could place bets, because obviously some guy comes in and says, I'm going to bet $1 million this guy's going to score under. They're going to say, that's weird. But if a bunch of people do it and bet small amounts that are normal, no one's going to be the wiser. So what happens? Well, the guy pays multiple bets at sportsbooks operated by Betting Company 3, totaling $61,000, all of which were straight or parlay bets on the one guy's unders. And this is where you get in trouble, guys. Pigs get fat and hogs get slaughtered. Do not just bet $1 million fucking dollars on people. It's very much like in Goodfellas. Like, don't just go buy, as soon as you steal everything, go buy a brand new Cadillac. Like, everybody's gonna find out you're doing it. Don't be a tard. Don't be a tardo about it. It's not hard. This is how it gets sussed out. You bet 61 G's on Terry Rozier. I mean, that's a lot of money to bet on a fucking guy. So, there were multiple bets on the same guy for $107,000. Another guy did it for a bunch of bets for $41,000. This is just... another guy did another one for $20,000, $17,000. This is how you get noticed. This is how you get noticed. This is how you fucking get noticed. This is how you get noticed in this stuff. And, here's the thing. The guy was a first-round pick in the NBA draft. He's not the... He's important enough. So it wasn't like they were picking just random rum bums. But they were kind of like having guys they could sneak around with there. Yeah, but ultimately it's this is... the guy doesn't have, the worst stats ever. But he does have, a decent amount. I've never heard of this fucking guy. But I also don't watch the NBA. You wish you had money to burn. Well, yeah, that's the thing here. So these other guys were, making payments and collecting money. It's like, you get caught doing this shit. Some guy placed multiple straight bets on his unders for $12,000. They fucking notice when you do that. Another guy placed $800 using on his under. And they since then, Conspirator 6 placed dozens of bets on his performances via that one betting company. They keep track of this. They know something's up. Every one of those bets, with the exception of the under bet, was an over bet. Huh. And once again, this is why people, when they count cards, are stupid. You have to lose a bunch. If you win all the time, then everybody knows something's up. You have to lose a lot to kind of cover yourself. So the bet on the unders was successful, and he got $1,500. And the following days, he placed multiple bets and lost approximately $4,000. And it says, following that string of losses, he texted the guy, "I lost that shit on whatever website. I'll give you a light sack when I see you." And then later the guy responded, "Bet." It's like, you fucking idiots. You fucking idiots. They just kept on doing this. They talk about more of that. They later placed more bets, a $4,000 parlay for unders on the March 23rd game. And, this is a straw bet because it's a relative of a guy was funded by another co-conspirator. And then during the game, Terry Rozier removed himself from the game in the first quarter and didn't return. He had played approximately 9 minutes and 34 seconds, well below his 35 minutes average game. He scored 5 points, 2 assists, and made 1 3-point shot, which is well below his game averages of 21 points per game, 5 assists, and 2.6 3-pointers, and below the line set by the odds makers. He collected 4 rebounds, which is in line with his per-game average of 1.4, and above the line set by the, betting people. His early exit and his related underperformance relative to his averages resulted in numerous fraudulent wagers. Yeah, he took a fucking dive, chat. He did some point shaving here. Nick Kreuzer says, "Bet without rhythm. You won't attract the worm." And then Taylor Cook seems very upset. That motherfucker Rozier went 0 for 10 from 3 in Game 7 playing for the Celtics in 2018. Fuck him. You seem very upset. That seems like that hurt you personally. Seems like it hurt you personally. Oh. Taylor Cook says, "I did hit a sweet parlay last week. Max Verstappen to win and Charles Leclerc to get a podium." I guess, but betting on Max to win is so sad. Max sucks. I hate Max. Amateur Iconoclast says the NBA frowns upon games being fixed, interferes with their own fixing of games. 100%. 100%. Yes, they're like, that's our job to modify problems. So they keep talking about here that all this stuff surrounds, like, this is one of the big ones here, but it's because look at all the money these guys did. Like, this gets you noticed immediately. And then, they start investigating. These guys traveled around to collect the proceeds from the fraudulent betting. They go around to pay each other out. They gave the guy tens of thousands of dollars in payment for the non-public information. They go through all of this. They talk about another game. So the next day, the Portland Trailblazers played the Bulls. And prior to the game, their record was 32-40, and the team was out of playoff contention with only 10 games remaining. Prior to the game, another co-conspirator told the guy the Trailblazers were going to be tanking, intentionally losing to increase their odds of getting a better draft pick. And they say before the news was publicly announced, several of their best players, including player one and individuals who the grand jury knows of, would not be playing. And teams will do this. They'll tank games to make their situation better, especially in the NBA. Now, the information the Blazers would be tanking, and once again, they're allowed to rig games, not you, was not available to the public. And they provided that information, and these guys went ahead and did retarded things. They started betting, crazy amounts. $20,000 wire transfers to start setting things up. And And before these players were ruled out of the games, because remember, as soon as the players start not participating, the parlays and the money lines and all the odds start changing. So if you lock it in while the team is playing with a bunch of its great players and you bet against them, you're going to have really good odds. But if all the star players are not playing that game, the opposing team, you're going to have shittier odds to recover on. So they placed and caused a placement of multiple bets that they would lose the game, totaling more than $100,000. And this is before the best players were publicly not involved. But once again, this is how you get caught. That's a lot of fucking money. You know, one guy did it for $20,000 and another one for $12,000. And they say the injury reports were released and that one guy was probable and then questionable. Well, a half hour before the start time, they listed him as out. And the out group included the 4 highest per game scorers during the 2022 and 2023 season. So that'll change your odds a lot. A lot. I do not root for Lewis Hamilton. I will fucking fight you for that. I will fight you over that. So, yes, they show this, and then the Bulls beat the Trailblazers 124-96. You know, they talk about an Orlando Magic game where this starts happening. You know, the Magic would not be playing its entire regular starting lineup in the April 6th game. Knowing that ahead of time, God, that's a lot of information. At the time, the Magic were favored to win by 9 points. But think about how bad the spread's going to get changed. Maybe even the Magic are going to lose now. So they got greedy, placing fucking $11,000 wagers. You know, that the Cavs would cover the spread. You know, and that, you know, the Magic didn't play its entire lineup. The Cavs beat the Magic by 24 points. You know, these guys are just doing shit here where this gets you caught. This gets you caught. You know, they then do some stuff involving the Lakers games. 2 Lakers games in February, and then later in the next year, they do it. You know, and on multiple occasions, these guys attempted to sell for-profit, non-public information. You know, these guys send text messages to each other. Get a big bet on Milwaukee tonight before the information is out. And they say, bet enough so D. Jones can eat too now. And they talk about providing all this information, the injury reports, all this stuff. It all changes the money lines. It all changes the odds. And no, they keep talking. Hit me ASAP as soon as you got one for the dude. He got some info. You know, these guys are selling the information for like $2,500. And they type in their thing, fee, not, you know, like that. Like, just once again, you're taking notes on your criminal conspiracy. So stupid. So fucking stupid. So fucking stupid. You know, but then these guys did all kinds of other shit. Like, this guy placed a $100,000 bet, and it's not, it's like, I get it if it's the NBA Finals. It's January of 2024, meaning the season's just started. And he placed a $100,000 bet. Like, you get caught doing this shit. You get caught. Now, it's like one thing if you're Elon Musk or Phil Mickelson. From what I understand, I guess Phil Mickelson, the golfer, is like a hardcore gambler, and he'll throw down massive fucking bets on things. Okay, you drop $100,000, you know, you drop 100 bands and you're worth like $20 million. Okay, that makes some sense. Like, I can see that. But these guys probably aren't that rich, and they're dropping $100,000. Like, man, people notice you. People notice you. They need a criminal lawyer to help them with their conspiracy. Well, yeah, but you can tell them. You've been busy today. Yes, congratulations, man. I saw that. Congratulations to you. You have to have your mom, your sister, and grandma open FanDuels and use their accounts. Well, that's a way to try to hide it. But once again, This information, you can only, like, if you make a little bit here and there off of it, that's the only way you would survive. I'm not telling you to engage in wire fraud and points fixing. But if you win by little amounts, you're gonna that's how you stay off the radar. It's kind of like the when we talked about those fishermen who were putting lead weights in the fish out here in Lake Erie, the guys who were cheating. The reason why everybody got mad at them and realized they were cheating was their weight for their fish was like 20 pounds heavier than anybody else had caught that day. If they had just left their fish with a little bit of weight in them and been a couple pounds over, nobody, like, you're like, okay, well, that happens. But when you fuck up and you get caught going way overboard, people notice that stuff. People notice that stuff. Yes, less is more, but you don't make money that way. It takes a long time. It takes a long time. Remember, pigs get fat, hogs get slaughtered. They say ultimately talk about player forward played in the game with the season average minutes and performed well, and the Lakers won. And at that point, they transferred another $2,500. And these guys text each other saying he has credible non-public information. Like, people fucking figured this out, man. Why would you do this? There's another game in 2024 with the Raptors playing the Clippers and then the Kings. The Kings! Another player, Jonte Porter, agreed to exit the game prematurely, faking an injury. So they would do it. And then, after this non-public information, like, if he told everybody I'm going to quit, well, there you go. So what happened? So they did all this. Well, obviously, they're committing fraud, and they're using electronics to do it. It's wire fraud. They had conspiracy to commit money laundering. Because obviously, you've got to hide the transactions from your wire fraud. Remember, guys, one of these guys have probably done as well. When you commit these crimes, wire fraud, money laundering, tax evasion, they generally all go together. Structuring. Because if I have illegally obtained money through wire fraud, I've got to launder it. I've got to not pay taxes on it. And I've got to put it in a bank without anybody noticing. So generally, you kind of commit these 4 crimes together. Wire fraud, money laundering, structuring, and tax evasion. They all generally go hand in hand. So they're seeking criminal forfeiture. They're going to seize all the money or things bought with that money. And that's kind of where they go there, too. They want to forfeit against all these guys. And that is where this starts. Now, some of these same people, and this is kind of where this is where the government starts looking and they catch you on stuff. They kind of catch you on things here. And Balm says, hold on, slow down. I need to write this down. Yes. Don't structure. And chat, we talked before, structuring is trying to avoid the reporting requirements at your bank. If you deposit more than $10,000, yes, that is automatically something they will report. But you can do suspicious activity, meaning if I come into the bank every time and deposit $9,000, the bank has to make a report on that. It's called an SAR, Suspicious Activity Report. Or if I go to 15 different banks and deposit $1,000, that's structuring. That's illegal. Even if I'm not doing anything wrong with the money, even if I didn't realize that was illegal. For example, a lot of people learn, people do this if they come from like the old country and anywhere outside the United States where like you have to be very careful that people won't rob you in transit to the bank, and you can't necessarily trust every bank. You got to worry about the cops trying to tax you. You're from some shithole corrupt country. So how do you protect yourself? You send all your money out a bunch of different ways. That may be fine, but here in America, that's illegal. And that happens all the fucking time. It happens all the time. And it's like a lot of immigrants get jammed up on that. Not as much anymore, but for a long time it was happening. Yes, do not structure. But anyways, we'll get back to Chauncey Billups and the gang here. So what were they doing? They were doing, and this is funny, it's a complex fraud scheme cheating at illegal poker games. Like, well, if they're already illegal, I mean, oh no, you're committing a crime against other criminals. So they had a rigged game, and they're manipulating poker games that are otherwise non-rigged or straight illegal poker games. So these were honest criminals and unauthorized poker games they were ripping off. So what were these guys doing, though? Well, they were ripping off poker games in Manhattan, New York. And the Washington Place game and the Lexington Avenue game were on record, which means they are operating under someone's protection. Who do you think, if you're in Manhattan, New York, and you're operating an illegal poker game, an underground poker game, who do you think you probably have to have protection from? Who do you think you have to pay a tribute to? Who do you think, chat? Who do you think you have to pay a tribute to at that point? Well, you had the express permission and approval of organized crime families of La Cosa Nostra. Yes, the mafia. These guys are ripping off the fucking mob. That is very, very, very ballsy. Ripping off the fucking 5 families. You know, just imagine that. You're ripping off the fucking Genoveses, the Bonanos. Like, fuck. I'm surprised people aren't dead over this. Surprised people aren't dead. Yeah, I know. The balls on these guys. The balls on these guys. And yes, you have to pay off probably the NYPD and Eric Adams. Yes. You're probably paying off, like, but the mob takes care of that. That's who you're paying for the protection. You're doing it. It's just like in The Sopranos. The card game that Jackie Jr. goes and robs. It was under Tony's protection. So they provided support and protection for the games in exchange for a portion of all the illegal proceeds. And the victims of the rigger pokering scheme, the victims believed they were participating in legitimate poker games and were gambling against each other. In reality, the co-conspirators worked on cheating teams. And cheating teams used wireless technology to read cards dealt in each hand and relay that information around. And yes, through the rig scheme, they defrauded victims of millions of dollars. So these are probably, very much high roller. These are going to be high roller things. It's because you can't just show up to like these games and be like, "Oh, hello, hi criminals. I have $100. I'm a tourist. Can I come gamble and partake?" No, you've got to throw in some big buy-ins here. Anyways, you talk about guys. This guy named Ernest Aiello was a guy who's a member of the Bonanno crime family, which, once again, whoo, very serious fucking people, especially if he's a made man. A made man in the Bonanno crime family. Yeah. Yes, he was an interior decorator in the Czech Republic. He killed, he did interior decorating for a bunch of Chechens. Yes, but you have to be very, 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 very fucking careful. You have to be very careful with this shit. These guys aren't fucking around. There's other guys involved. A guy of the Gambino crime family. Like fucking John Gotti guys. Like, there's other people here. These guys, if they're an associate, that means they're not a made man, but he's a member, presumably he's a made man. An associate of the Gambino crime family. Like, you got to be careful, and a member of the cheating teams. And these guys organized the Washington games, and they did other rigged games. A guy named Saul. It's like, oh, I'm sure he's just a good Jewish boy. Then Chauncey Billups is also involved in the cheating teams. Then all these other people. Another guy's a member of the Genovese crime family. Like, we're getting a lot of the families together here. We got the Bonanos, the Gambinos, the Genoveses. We're getting there, chat. They're getting the band back together. Another guy who is a member of the Gambino crime family. Another guy who's an associate of the Gambinos. Like, all these people are here. Another guy who's part of the Genovese crime family. Like, these guys, like, this is fucking serious. And, like, this all falling apart. Somebody might die over this because it would have been a lot of money. It would have been a lot of money involved. Were there the other families here? Yeah, the Lucchese crime family. Like, everybody's wetting their beak on these things, guys. Everybody's wetting their beaks. Another guy's in the Bonanno family. So what would they do here? Well, so they were supplied with all this technology to cheat with. And they say to attract victims, they would bring in former athletes. These guys were known as face cards, they're marks. That's kind of funny. And they bring in to them. The face cards were members of the cheating team and received a portion of the proceeds in exchange for their participation. So Chauncey Billups and Damon Jones, who are former NBA players, were face cards, and they were brought in. Hey, look, we're doing this with athletes. We're heckin' awesome. You get to hang out with these people. They used card shuffling machines that were randomly, they were using their shufflers and the shoes weren't running right. So they altered them to, read the cards in the deck, and they could predict who had the best poker hands and relay that via interstate wires to an off-site operator. The operator then communicated by cell phone to the cheating team members. And they came up with the whole plan here. So basically they did this. They also did electronic poker chip trays that could read cards placed on the poker table. They had this is like they went all out to do this. They had playing cards that had markers only visible to certain individuals. They had invisible die and invisible markings on them. So you just wear your glasses, you're sitting there, you got your blue or red tinted glasses, and you're just reading the cards out like that. This is something else, isn't it, guys? Yes. It do be like that, Mr. Martin. Yes. Yes. It do be like that. It do be like that. So when these games were held, members of the Bonanno, Gambino, and Genovese crime families used threats to ensure payments of debts from the rigged games and the people who got hosed down. They did this to them as well as to protect the games from competition and other threats. So they received portions of the proceeds. They received proceeds on behalf of the various crime families here. The Gambinos, the Genovese crime families. They are all involved in this. Everybody got their beaks wet. Remember, you gotta fucking earn. Gotta make your vig, chat. And go out there and bust some heads. You gotta be a good earner. Gotta be a good earner. So to conceal this nature, they laundered their proceeds through shell companies and third parties. There had been a lot of money, hundreds of thousands of dollars floating around everywhere. So that's how they would do this. And they say, for example, several of the defendants did a rigged game in Las Vegas where they defrauded people out of 50 G's. It's a lot of fucking money, guys. It's a lot of money. And they participate in these games using rigged shoes. And they say several of them participated in the Lexington Avenue game, at which they defrauded some whale, like DSP style, out of $1.8 million. They get these people coming in like that, and they take it for $1.8 million. Oh. Idle and Sub Final Revolution, yes. How many years did Phil Leotardo do in the can? 20 years he did in the can. But no, it's like Darkside Phil's whales just dropping 1.8 million. Was it Boss Man Jack? No, probably not. But think about it. They would have grabbed some, people, hey, come out with us. You'll have fun. So they received a portion of that and it went around. The one of the guys laundered at least 100,000 of these involving John Doe 1. They talk about other games they did. They did a game in the Hamptons. They scammed guys out of about 150 G's out there. They did other rigged games using the shuffling machines and the shoes being all rigged. There's another game in September 2024 down in Miami where they hosed down a guy for 60 grand. And so, yeah, remember, there's going to be a bunch of people involved. And it's like you and another guy might be the only people who aren't part of the scam. And everybody in the room is there trying to fuck you. So, through April 2019 through the present, they got at least $7.1 million, which means they probably got more. On several occasions, they used threats and force of violence to secure repayment of debts. So they did extort and threaten John Doe, an individual who lost money. Remember, guys, you got to pay your debt. You owe. And the points are fucking running. And the interest getting tacked on. So pay your fucking debt. Pay your debt. They extorted John Doe number 6. They conspired to steal from John Doe number 7. The guy who supplied the shuffling machines. So even the guy they were working with, they tried to fuck. The guy who supplied the machines, they tried to fuck over. So there's, count 1, they had wire fraud, obviously. It's a conspiracy to commit wire fraud. Using your phones to communicate with. Count 2 is illegal gambling businesses, which when you have Flapper Poker doing this, gambling business involving illegal poker games, which operate in violation of New York state laws, and they also violates federal law. And you have periods of gross revenue of at least $2,000 in one or more single days. Another illegal gambling business, money laundering. Once again, chat, remember, money laundering, wire fraud, structuring, tax evasion, they all go hand in hand. Hobbs Act, extortion, which this is one we've never covered before. But you can't extort people. You can't obstruct, delay, and affect commerce and the movement of articles in commerce by extortion, which they meant United States currency from one of these guys. And extorting money is not allowed. The Hobbs Act also involves robbery. So what happened? Well, they used the guy Black Rob and others. They conspired to rob somebody, and they robbed the rigged shuffling machine from the one guy. They were working with him. They stole the fucking machine. Black Rob stole. Shocker, I know. They also had extortion for other people here. They extorted other guys. They extorted from John Doe, and they threatened him with force. And then obviously they're going to steal all this stuff, and all these things are happening here. Forfeitures for all this. So, don't do it, chat. Do not engage in this shit. But these guys were like, Chauncey Billups and these dudes, they got in bed with the fucking mafia. Now, is it the same mafia as, John Gotti and, Joe Bananas and all the crazy fucking people? No. But will these guys fucking kill you at some point too? Probably. Don't fuck with them. Don't fuck with them. Don't fuck with them. Don't fuck with them. It's not a good idea. It's not a good idea. It's not a good idea. So. Oh. All right, chat. So don't do it. Just don't do it. But also, these people are probably involved. These guys are probably all involved in the point shaving, all kinds of shit. All kinds of stuff. Just be careful who you're, it might sound like, oh, we're playing around with this stuff. And very quickly, you're fucking with some really dangerous people. Tommy 2 times and Joey knows it all, yes. Yeah, be careful. Be careful. Patty Letter says, there is no mafia. That's something the Jews made up to make Catholics look bad. Well, apparently we ran with it, though, very quickly because we're like, oh, this is a good fucking idea to make money. Okay, now, guys, we have 2 things left. We're going to get to the kind of the non-important thing first. If you want a good dub for the Trump team tonight, there is a dub to be had, and that is out of the Ninth Circuit. There's another big thing that dropped, and this is for the Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals, and this is the case of Trump v. Newsom. So this is Gavin Newsom in California suing Trump over federalizing the California National Guard. Remember, we heard the oral arguments on that, and the injunction Gavin Newsom has secured has been stayed. Well, when you're at the Court of Appeals level, after your 3-judge panel, you can then ask for an en banc hearing. An en banc hearing is a hearing before the entire Ninth Circuit, which would be all the active judges who are not recused would hear the case. Now, how does this work? Well, they took on this, a judge of this court, meaning any judge in the Ninth Circuit can do this, sua sponte, meaning on their own. But you can also ask for it as a party. Requested a vote on whether to rehear this case en banc. The vote was taken, and the matter failed to receive a majority of the votes of the non-recused active judges in favor of the consideration. So the rehearing for en banc is denied. And then a couple of judges had statements regarding the denial of it, and Judge Gould's dissent are filed concurrently. And you might say, wait, yeah, there's like 43 pages to a simple announcement. You're like, what? 43 fucking pages? Yes. Yes. So at the end of the day, suffer, California. You couldn't even get all the judges to agree to it. Now, this is where a bunch of these judges comment on this. And look, you know, this is once again, it's the sad music time. It's the sad music time. This is just absolutely fucking ridiculous. This is just, we got to have the song going, chat. You know, because it's all about the Civil War, chat. We have to have it in the background. We have to have it in the background. We have to have it in the background here, and I'm going to have to read off for us as we go. But as we go here, guys, here you go. It's so sad, chat. In regards to the peacetime deployment of military troops in American cities, for the first time in nearly 250 years, the president claims extraordinary, unilateral powers to order National Guard troops onto the streets in response to short-term domestic protest of federal policies. This clashes directly with the strong traditional resistance of Americans to military intrusion into civil affairs. That venerable tradition traces to the British use of troops immediately preceding the American Revolution to enforce oppressive measures, and is reflected in the Declaration of Independence. It's just so sad. He's literally Hitler. It won't stop, chat. They won't stop. And it says the panel may have an opportunity to revisit its preliminary stance with the benefit of greater time and more extensive briefing. I certainly hope that it can and will do so, and that if it does not, the court will agree to review it later. This is just these people fucking cried, and I can't keep doing it. It's too fucking cringe. It's too cringe. This is just page after page after page of just fucking belly aching and fucking crying. And this is in the Ninth Circuit, and it's like, honey, if they don't agree with you, if your fellow judges aren't agreeing, like, come on. And this just goes on and on and on. Cry, 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 cry. You know, the panel opinion was written with exigent circumstances, with fairly perfunctory briefing, and no knowledge as to what was coming next. What came next was the deployment of troops to more cities, Washington, Portland, and Chicago, over the objections of local authorities and repeated threats to go to Baltimore, San Francisco, Oakland, and New York. Oh, no, Chad, it's literally Hitler time. It's literally Hitler time. And it says, but I continue to think the president's disregard for this country's deep-seated commitment to the principle that armed forces must not be used as civil law enforcers, except where there is no alternative, should have been headed off now, not later. The panel opinion should have been reconsidered. Oh my god. Oh my god, chat. And then we get this here. The democratic ideals our nation has promoted for the last quarter millennium will be gravely undercut by allowing military force and weapons of war. Oh no! To be deployed against American citizens on U.S. soil on the flimsy grounds asserted here for this use of executive power. This is so sad. So sad. Oh no. Ah, yes. Not Mustache Man. Oh no. Yes, the great tampon smoking. Yes, the great tampon soakings. Yes, chat. I'm sure they went out and tampon stock sword in the area. But yes, that is the big dub for the Trump administration now. And on to the last story tonight, chat. Soldier F. You guys see that at the beginning in Bloody Sunday. Some of you might say Bloody Sunday, you mean like in Northern Ireland. Yes. Like U2's song, Sunday, Bloody Sunday. Yes, this is a watershed moment in the Troubles in Northern Ireland. Bloody Sunday. And if you guys have ever seen, this all really stemmed from the British government's failure to afford the Irish in Northern Ireland proper civil rights. Now, what had happened? Well, starting back in 1969 was everything kicked off in Northern Ireland, really, to the Troubles as we know them. There were some previous instances of problems in Northern Ireland. There was things like the border campaign where there was some military actions going on in the 50s and early 60s. But it's in the late 60s, starting in 1969, when the British government, in response to massive rioting, including what was known as the Battle of the Bogside, the British Army was fully deployed into Northern Ireland. And yes, you're making time for History Hour. And ultimately, you guys have probably seen some of these things, especially in Northern Ireland. They have all their murals and things like that. And one of them is, you've probably seen this before, this is You Are Now Entering Free Derry. And this was an area that the Northern Irish, the Republicans had said, we're not obeying British rule here. And there were massive riots in defiance of the British government. Well, the British government started doing things that really were civil rights violations. People were being interred. They were being held for long times without trial. They were basically imprisoning people without anything happening to them. And by 1972, things had really gotten out of hand. The British were going fucking crazy with how they were treating people, with how they were treating all of this. And this is in Londonderry in Northern Ireland. And, by 1972, the British were just arresting people. And that led to massive civil rights protests in Northern Ireland. And yes, at that point, there was massive sectarian violence. If you guys have ever heard of the terms of like the Shankill Road and various places where like Protestant neighborhoods were going and burning down Irish neighborhoods. And then there was some back and forth, but a lot of times things like the Royal Ulster Constabulary, the RUC, and then later on the British military were kind of letting stuff happen because the Protestants and the Ulsters were like, yeah, they're our bros. They support the British government. There were all kinds of things that happened. And from there, you really got the sectarian violence, the IRA. You had various groups going forward. You had various Ulster and Loyalist militias that were going on. Bombings, assassinations, attacking of people. If you guys have ever heard the song My Little Armalite, they talk about things like, down in the Bogside, it's where you want to be. Lying in the dark with the Provo Company. Things were out of control. People get murdered. The SAS was running around ambushing people. The British were taking armored cars out. And, civilians were getting murdered and getting killed. And Bloody Sunday is probably one of the worst things that happened in it. probably one of the worst things that happened. And so what happened? In January 30th, 1972, the British Parachute Regiment. And if you guys have never seen, it's the British. The British didn't have an airborne division by this point. They did during World War II, but they had been reduced and consolidated down to the Parachute Regiment. They're known as the Paras. This is their flag, and they're still in existence today. The Parachute Regiment. They were in Londonderry, and they were sent there to quell some rioting and people protesting because of all the crazy shit the British government was doing. Well, what happened? Well, at that point, the soldiers opened fire on the crowd. 13 people were dead and 15 people were wounded. And this is where Bloody Sunday came from. And there are multiple pictures of what happened that day. This is the area where it happened. All this stuff is gone now. It's all been razed. But that is what Northern Ireland, that spot in Northern Ireland looked like. And people got killed. And the information on this, this is the monument. These people were, 17-year-olds. A bunch of kids got fucking shot. And it was a disaster for the British government. And there are a lot of famous pictures from it. There are, one of the most famous ones. This is kind of like the Kent State thing, where that girl's crying over the guy who got killed. This is probably one of the most famous things out of Bloody Sunday. And this is Father Edward Daly waving a bloody handkerchief like, please don't shoot at us. Well, the guy they're carrying, he's one of those 17-year-olds, is mortally wounded, and he dies later. This was a massive fucking thing that happened. And it was really, really, really bad. These people were butchered. And it was a critical thing that happened that happened out there. There's a bunch, if you guys, check it out. Think about it. This is kind of an example of the shit that was going on. This is going to be, a British soldier running around with a rifle chasing that guy down. Now, what happened since then? Well, there were a bunch of investigations. By that point, though, all the soldiers in the parachute regiment who were there, basically kind of lost all military discipline. They fucking just kind of let loose and started fucking people up. But that was also not uncommon. And it's something that people have been dealing with for years and for decades now, marching and protesting for their family members. And all of this ended up with the soldiers that were involved in this. They were never known by their names. They were known by identifiers as like Soldier A, Soldier B, Soldier C, Soldier D, and ultimately Soldier F. Soldier F is one of the parachute regiment members, and ultimately he was charged with murdering two guys, James Ray and William McKinney, and was charged with attempted murder on 5 other people. He was found not guilty by a court in Belfast over all of this. Now, the judges did point out that there wasn't enough evidence to show he did it, specifically. But there is an entire history of what happened here. There were a bunch of investigations. The initial one, there was an initial tribunal that said the army had actually been shot at first. That was complete bullshit. They weren't shot at first. Later on, as part of the peace process and part of the Accords in 1994. There was another investigation where they determined, the paratroopers did fire on the civilians and there was no threat. The British government has slowly been apologizing, and, eventually David Cameron in the House of Commons said, yep, sorry, we didn't have the right to do that. As things go from there, Soldier F is the only one who's been prosecuted for murder. And why is he called Soldier F? He has legal anonymity because there are concerns he will be attacked and killed. And certainly he probably would be. If people knew who he was, people would probably kill him, especially now that he's been acquitted. So what all ultimately happened? Well, at the end of the day, all the information these soldiers had to give in their initial tribunals and investigations was not able to be used against them. So at this point, they had to do a traditional trial. And from there, he was found not guilty. And this just came out like this, hot off the presses. I knew the trial had happened, and I didn't know there was a verdict yet. So thank you to Luke out there for telling me, hey, man, this actually went down. Because this is a big fucking deal. And ultimately, they, they say ultimately here, they say, that these guys, the judges who were involved in it, said, it's clear these guys lost all sense of military discipline, and the soldiers who did open fire were trying to kill, and they weren't in self-defense. Other soldiers were serially untruthful. And that the problem was there were other soldiers, and the prosecution's case rested on two statements given by other soldiers, G and H, who were involved in the initial investigations. And those were read to the court were the only pieces of evidence that said Soldier F fired his rifle. And they said G and H had been found untruthful in their accounts, and therefore they couldn't do anything about it. So this 50-year-old murder case is done. Obviously the veterans groups were like, well, remember, the paramilitaries on both sides killed 90% of the people. And that is true. Most of the violence was committed by the paramilitaries, but the government killing 10% of the people involved in it is still really fucking bad. But once again, guys, it's interesting, these sagas, and these are kind of like the epilogues to some of the most tumultuous times in the 20th century. This is kind of one of the epilogues to the Troubles. Obviously the Irish nationalists are very upset about it. The Unionists, which are the Ulstermen, are, saying, they're saying whether this guy should have ever been prosecuted. And really, if they have just these statements from two guys who aren't alive or available anymore, they really did prosecute this guy just based on these written statements. That is a bit stretch. That is a bit of a stretch. But yes, the problem is these killings from the Troubles it's one of the most complex things out there. Because you're dealing with the security forces, you're dealing with what the military was doing. For example, the SAS operated extensively in Northern Ireland throughout the 70s, 80s, and 90s. They did a lot of secret squirrel shit. And in fact, prior to the War on Terror, the foremost experts on military operations in urban terrain were the British military, because they were engaged in gunfights and battles with IRA troops routinely. They were the only people who had a reliable amount of it. So, yeah, that's kind of the end of things there. But it's something to keep in mind. And it's it's not something we deal here in America. It is I guess it's an example of this stuff can have very wide-ranging and reaching consequences at the end of the day. And history really does impact this stuff. It really does impact it. And, is this justice? I mean, those, 13 people are murdered. Nobody can test that anymore. that the pair has fired on those people. Is anybody ever going to be held accountable? Doesn't ever sound like it. Should Soldier F have been held accountable? I don't know. But obviously somebody did the shooting, and that guy's probably never, ever, 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 ever going to be held accountable. And is that justice? I mean, it's kind of one of those things. It's kind of one of those things, guys. It's just something to think about. Just something to think about out there. Let's see here. A couple of comments you guys have on this. Patty Lotus says Soldier F is a criminal. I mean, if that's all the evidence they had, I don't know if you could say he is. I don't know if you could say he is. But yeah, it's yeah. Yep. Sad times all around. Catching up on some other comments here. Making sure I got everything. Brad Powers asked us earlier, do ATC, air traffic controllers, have any grounds for a lawsuit for not being paid yet deemed essential? No, because they get back pay. Those guys always get repaid. That's not going to be an issue. They'll get repaid. They have union contracts. The National Association of Air Traffic Controllers, the National Air Traffic Controller Association, those guys, they're going to get paid. They're going to get paid. And I think even with the credit unions they have things worked out, kind of like how the military's got some things worked out. So, no, they really can't do anything about that. They have unions for all that. Maddie B for $5 says, Sean, if I eat a roast beef sandwich and it smells yeasty, do you still eat it? No. I would not recommend eating yeasty roast beef at all. Shredder S07 is saying bets within bet interlinked. And then the Shugi Show for 199 says, did I miss you talking about the East Wing meltdown? No, we hadn't gotten there yet, guys. But yeah, this is something I see. People are freaking out about the White House demolitions that Trump is doing, and people aren't exactly sure what's going on. And you guys have probably seen pictures of the skit or the excavators out there busting down parts of the East Wing. And it's not that big a deal. The White House has been destroyed and reassembled multiple times. And this is actually a really good map here to help people understand what we're kind of looking at here. Because some people did ask me questions about it. Let me see here. Yes, they're Stancils, not people. Yes. It do be like it is, Mr. Stancil. Now, this is just, if you guys weren't aware of the White House actual layout. So, for example, the White House, is the White House. That's where the president lives. The West Wing is right here. This is the Eisenhower Executive Office building right here. The EEOB. That's where the vice president is, and that's where his office is. But guys, notice, if you didn't know this, the Oval Office is not in the White House. The Oval Office is part of the West Wing. Okay? The West Wing was built, Teddy Roosevelt helped make sure it was constructed. They also constructed the East Wing, which was mainly for where they would hold events, but also where the First Lady would take care of shit. Then, obviously, here's the Rose Garden. Here's Jackie Kennedy's garden. Pennsylvania Avenue in the background. Oh my God, it's still fucking raining. Holy shit. Okay, I'm getting cold. There we go. So anyways, this is the Treasury Department's right here too. But the East Wing is what is being torn down, and that's where the big ballroom is going. And if you guys have seen the pictures, that's where this big ballroom thing is going to be created. And that's, there are no places in the White House where you can hold dignitary events. There are, a lot of people have pointed out that the East Wing of the White House is 100-some years old. It was getting pretty dilapidated and falling apart. It was pretty shitty. So when dignitaries would come and big events would come, you have to hold them outside or under tents because this East Wing building was just fucking falling apart. So it's not the end of the world. Don't panic about it. They are basically tearing everything down. You guys can see this here. They're getting close to the White House. They are basically going to tear it all down, like to right here. Like all of this is going to get torn down, and they're going to build new things. So this entire thing is going to get torn apart. And guys, the White House did not look like this back when it was first built. Thomas Jefferson had things added on. He added the columns, the portico. This side was added on to. Truman added things into it. Teddy Roosevelt added the East Wing and the West Wing. William Howard Taft added on to the place. Truman had it gutted completely in the 50s. And if you guys have never seen that, the original wood framing of it, well, that was all ripped out. And the Truman White House renovations is actually pretty cool. If you guys have never seen these pictures before, the White House is actually a shell. It's not like a building anymore. This was the White House. If you were to strip it all down, this is what the White House looks like inside. It's a brick shell with a steel frame inside. So the White House is actually a lot stronger and more stable now, but they had bulldozers running around in this. So it's not the first time that's ever happened. This is a very, the White House has had a lot done to it. I mean, look at, they had a killdozer in there, chat. A 1947 killdozer. But, steel. When you need steel, use Bethlehem steel. But here you go. This is them rebuilding the internals of the White House. The White Horse? No, the White House. Oh, this is good. I like this look. So here's the, over the course of a month, look what happened. Whoop. To womp, womp, womp. Based. Based. If only Nixon has gotten his way with the White House. Well, yeah. There was a bowling alley put in. There was a pool put in. All kinds of shit was put in. Not a big fucking deal. Yeah, T-Rex says it's also when they dug out the bunker underneath. Yes, they did all kinds of stuff. It's basically a giant shed, yes. Are there illegals working on this? No, but that would be hilarious if they did it. It would be hilarious if they did that. Get it, have them build it, and then arrest them and deport them. So it'll get done pretty quick here. Clinton installed the rape closet. Yes, he did. So, and that's it for us, guys. But a couple people asked about it, and I thought we'd talk about it tonight because they were like, what does all this mean? And explaining it. Yeah, we'll explain it. Biden installed the incest shower. Yes, that's off the Lincoln bedroom. Yes, the Kennedy rape room was added back in... Well, Kennedy was dead by 64. I think he means 61. Yes, the Kennedy rape room was added in 1961, and the tunnels were christened the Kennedy rape tunnels. Obama installed a dilation station for Big Mike. Yes, he did. Yes, jet fuel can't melt those steel beams. Jet fuel cannot melt Bethlehem steel. So, it was posthumously named the rape building, yes. Oh my God, Ronaldo. Rachel Corrie's great-grandmother was run over in the White House sub-basement. I don't think most people are going to understand the joke about Rachel Corrie pancakes. Rachel Corrie was a American woman who went to go protest the Israelis in the West Bank and got run over by an Israeli D9 bulldozer. So, if you ever hear the jokes, chat, it's called the Rachel Corrie pancakes. And you could make people sold them for a while, little bulldozer cutouts, and you're like, I'm making Rachel Corrie pancakes. Yes, because she got flattened. Yes. It's another story about Israel being evil. Yeah, but they murdered a communist bitch. So it's like, I'm willing to give them a pass on that one because, she wasn't a nice woman. So, you got to give people passes where they exist there. You got to give them where they exist. Voshika says, will I be interested in covering over on Locals the Eugenia Cooney Twitter lawsuit stuff? Yes. As it comes out, yes, I will be. So, but not yet. Not yet. We need to do some work there. P. Mike says, one of the guys charged with killing Ethan Liming, guys, that's the trial we watched where they killed the guy and stomped on him to death at the LeBron James school. Killed somebody again. Not a surprise. Not a surprise. Not a surprise. So, Rachel Corrie is a peaceful protester. Okay. Jim Cox says there's a trans flag flying above the free dairy money. That's the problem now. The problem with the Irish, they do cringe shit. They do really cringe shit, like suck Hamas and Palestinian dick. And they do things like this. You're like, what the fuck is this, Irish people? What the fuck is this? Like, they feel a kinship with the PLO and the Palestinians. It's like, y'all are faggots. Y'all faggots. So, Demon's Wrath. Okay, I think you're a little biased here. The IRA were always commie faggots. Think you're a little biased there, sir. Mate. Yes, the potato went left. So, yeah. There's all kinds of ball washing with the PLO there. So with that said, chat, we are all wrapped up for tonight. My schedule has opened up. Some things I was working on kind of worked themselves out. So we are going to, I'm not sure what we're going to do tomorrow. I think I forget what I said already. I got to double check. But chat, you can correct me on it. I think we were going to do something tomorrow night. Saturday, probably play some choo-choo trains. We'll do some train simming. And let's see here. So you're no longer representing the guy you said you weren't representing? No, that's not. No. Different. No. Yes, we're going to do some train stimming. Yes, train stimming. So, with that said, chat, I will see you guys later. How's 2.0 feeling? A lot better. She's getting a lot better, chat. For another 100 subs, chat, she'll feel better by the morning. Can we hit it? No, she's feeling a lot better now. Yeah. We're back up to 26,900 subscribers. Maybe we'll get to 27,000 at some point. Fingers crossed. So, anyway, we are going to go. We're going to move along here, chat. I will see you guys tomorrow. In the meantime, we are heading over to Locals. Once again, chat, use a promo code FALL2025. I'll see you there. And remember, until next time, just because you did it does not mean you're guilty. Unless you take fucking notes about you working with the crime families. Then you're going to get caught. Because remember, guess who's always watching them? The feds. And also, don't be greedy when you fucking bet. Don't be a retard. Bet little. Little gains. That's how you take care of yourself. Good night, chat. Good night. And take care.
Weapons, blacksmithing, and models of planes, esoteric works, and even some trains. Much merriment had.
No, I did not have a client take a plea. I was helping somebody else out with some things, and they were able to continue whatever the thing they were working on. So, no, my client didn't plea out. It wasn't involving my client. But I'm helping another attorney work on some things. And we just, if it's continued, and it didn't get continued by us, it got continued by the other side. So, neener.
While drinking White Claws, tips on hunting, and even talking the law. Whatever you do, just don't talk to cops. Even when they nab you on illegal stops. Just 'cause you did it doesn't mean you're guilty. But please talk to a local attorney. Was that